Once again, we're live. All right, hi everybody. This is George. Just gonna wave and say hi. We know we know the spiel by now. We wait a little bit for people to come on. Hope everyone's doing good today. It's a beautiful sunny day here in New York, which I'm very appreciative of. It's been a bit of a sad time here in New York, to be honest. I know this is a very scary, weird time, and there's a lot of people who are who are getting sick right now, especially in my hometown, and it makes me very sad. It makes me very angry. It makes me a lot of things. So I just want to tell you guys, just to be in the spirit of keeping real, that's why I'm wearing my 70s Bigfoot shirt. This is a shirt that makes me happy. When I wear this shirt, I just have to pass by a mirror and I see like the yellow, the oranges, and the reds, the bright colors. I see the Bigfoot, and it's a shirt that just makes me happy. And today I'm wearing my matching, can you see that? My Bigfoot on bicycle socks, because that also makes me happy. So I do a lot of little things to make me happy. And I bring this up, not just to fill time, although that is part of it. I bring this up because one of the things that's really been making me happy is doing this, getting a chance to come here and talk to all of you and get to to share like my love. And I do think it's a share, because I think everybody here loves the Greek gods and Greek mythology as much as I do. This makes me happy. So even on a day when it's really sad and blue, not literally because it's very sunny, but I can throw on my happy shirt, I can talk about some happy stuff. And so I figured I'd throw it out. Like, a lot of people love to write in. We're going to share some of the cool drawings and stuff. Maybe one of the things you could draw this time, draw something that makes you happy. Or draw something that you might even, if we want to keep it on theme, because I know we're all a bunch of big Greek myth heads here, maybe draw something that we think would make a specific god happy. Well, we know what makes Ares happy. It's a pile of dead people. Don't draw that. Or, if you do, you can. But, what makes the different goddesses and gods happy? That might be a cool thing to draw. We're going to do some other drawing today. Let's see, a little bit more housekeeping before we move on and stuff. I've been mentioning, if anybody is interested, because I'm loving to help out my local bookstore, Word Bookstores, that I'm probably going to be doing a comics class there. This won't be a free comics class. This will be something that's a little bit more in-depth. I'll have some details about this on Monday. But again, if this is something you're interested in, there's no commitment at all at this point. Just write a kid's word at wordbookstores.com. There will be a small admission for this. All of this money is going to Word to help them out in this time, because here in New York, I know it's most places, but New York, all the business has been closed, and there's people who work at Word, and Word's a great place, and there's a lot of places like that, and I want to do whatever I can to help Word. So any money that goes towards this is going 100% to help Word. Also, that's a good time to mention, starting Monday, I think we're going to move back this feed to Word. So if you're watching me here at the George O'Connor, which of course you are because it's not playing anywhere else, go back on Monday. I'll be at Word Bookstores. If you've missed any past episodes, you can go to my YouTube. It's George Olympians. I've got all the episodes up there except for the first two. The first two didn't tape correctly. They are lost. If some miraculous way somebody has them, or is some sort of tech guru who knows how to hack Instagram and get this, let me know. Otherwise, they're gone. So the Apollo Asclepius episode, it's gone. And the Hermes Pan episode, gone. That's okay. I'll eventually circle back around and do those guys again. I have a lot to say about all four of them. But the original version, unfortunately, it seems to be gone. Oh, and if you decide that you are in fact going to draw a picture of what makes you happy, being it wearing funny socks or a shirt or whatever, send it to me. Email at georgeoconnor@gmail.com. All right, let's share some artwork, and then we're going to get into the story today. Okay. As I am fond of saying, we are the lowest tech, high-tech show on the internet, so I'm just going to be holding pictures up to the screen. Look at this drawing. Here we have, this is a Poseidon, clearly. Check out his sick abs. Look at the muscles. Look at that one arm. I love it. And the face. He really captured the face. I love this little shark that's just kind of sitting there behind him like, I'm a shark with Poseidon. This picture came to me from... This is from Arlo. And actually, he reminds me, this is a funny story. I met Arlo once. So we both live in New York City, as it turns out. And one day I was just walking onto the subway, and there was this little boy reading one of my books right in front of me. And I said to my girlfriend, like, well, I have to say something here. So Arlo was with his mother, and I'm like, hi, I'm the guy who drew that book. So Arlo and I got to meet in, like, you know, person. So hi, Arlo, if you're watching. That's a great drawing. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. Here we have a couple more Poseidon drawings. Oops, sorry, guys. I love this one. I love when they go full color. Clearly a Poseidon underwater. So, look at him. He's got his hair flowing up, his mustache flowing down. Great color job. And then there is this one. Look at this. Oh, let's get a zoom in. Look at this powerfully built Poseidon. Something about Poseidon's really bringing it. People really draw him with the muscles. I like it. I mean, I was talking like he's one of the most powerfully drawn Olympians. Those drawings came to me from the first. Oh no, the powerfully built Poseidon. That was from Oscar. He's age 6, and the one with the flowing hair was from Miles. He's age 9. Way to go, guys! That's an excellent drawing. Ooh. One of the things I threw out yesterday, which I feel like I'm going to have to do a mini post about this separately because these are so cool. I forget how. Somehow we started talking about the idea of like a dream cast to play the Olympians. I think it was just a question that went up on the bottom. Someone's like, if there was an Olympians movie, who would you want to play them? I got some really good answers. They're pretty long, so I don't want to do them up front. And there's like a lot of visuals and stuff. So I think I'm going to do like a separate post, maybe one that I'll just post directly on my YouTube. Or maybe, I don't know, we'll figure this out. I want to get these out here because these things are super cool. There's some really great ideas here. It's amazing how many like amazing looks people found for like wow, that would really be a great person to play, you know, whomever, which god. All right, this is a drawing. Oh, it's really big, so I'm only able to show you part of it. This is a drawing by Jasper. This is Zeus. Check this out. Again, sick abs. This is Zeus when he's holding up his lightning bolt. I mean, just look at those details. This is an amazing drawing. Very talented artist. Also, Jasper is one of my favorite names, so that is super cool. Let's see, oh no, that's the wrong one. So Jasper, thank you so much for that. Also, pretty cool he drew Zeus, because we were talking about Poseidon, and those two have issues, so you don't want to have all Poseidon and no Zeus, because then next thing you know, oh, that's weird, George O'Connor got blown up by a lightning bolt, wonder why. So Jasper, I think you maybe just saved my life, so thank you so much. Although if I still get blown up by a lightning bolt, you guys know what happened. Tell everybody it was Zeus. Let's see what else we have here. We have, man, Poseidon was a very popular thing to draw. Here we have another Poseidon. This is by Drake. Check that out. You can see the trident, some crazy colors there, and I love it. And then, look at this Poseidon. That's a beautiful drawing. And if you recall, I actually said maybe one of the things to draw was like, draw them in their environment. This is clearly Poseidon at the bottom of the sea. Look at the bubbles. We have the seaweed. He's just kind of sitting there chilling, which, that's kind of rare for Poseidon. That is from Nora and Drake. We've actually seen stuff from them before. They're a powerhouse brother-sister drawing team. They've been doing some great, great stuff. Don't want to go too many more. We got a lot yesterday, so I'm probably not going to show everybody's. I don't know. I want to because I want to have a lot of time to talk. Let's see. All right. I like this one a lot. This one, another Poseidon from Joseph. And what I like about this, we have the cranky Poseidon face. Good job on that. And there's like the trident behind him. It's like Poseidon's face framed by 3 tridents. It's like, I guess it's like a Nova dent maybe or something. I don't know. That is super cool. Let's do one more, huh? And, here we go. This one, look at this amazing Persephone. And this is a springtime Persephone, which I really appreciate that. Persephone is the goddess of, like, two things that are kind of hard to reconcile in being the same person. She's the goddess of the underworld, but she's also the goddess of, like, rebirth and springtime, right? So that's really cool that you can see it's maybe based on the drawing I did of Persephone, where I drew her, like, kind of full goth mode, but like she gave her like the lighter brown hair, and like she's surrounded by flowers, and like, oh, I think that's like, is that a pig? It says pig. What's a pig? Why a pig? Eleanor, why a pig? Eleanor, this is from Eleanor. Eleanor is writing to us all the way from the UK. So hi, Eleanor. We've been getting mail from a lot of places. We've also had people watching in Germany, so that's pretty cool. So hi to the rest of the world. Hi to New York. Hi to the United States. Hi wherever you're watching this. If you're watching on Mount Olympus, way to go. Okay. So, I think that takes care of all that stuff. Now, we're here for the main attraction today. Today is a big day. We're actually making, up until this point, you could argue maybe Asclepius wasn't really a god, though he definitely was worshipped, although he does die, so whatever. We kind of are finally departing from an actual goddess or god today. We're going to be covering our first monster, and what a monster it is, although I really want to spend some time analyzing that term, because I have a lot of feelings about this character. Today we're going to be talking about Medusa. Now, a lot of times I've joked in this about, like, whenever, if this is your first time watching, towards the end of the episode, I always throw it open to Q&A, we ask questions, and invariably someone's like, who would you want to meet? And I'm always like, I don't want to meet any of the gods, because it's always going to be bad. And, like, I feel like the case of Medusa is a really great instance of why, no matter what, no matter how nice they are, no matter how big a fan you are, you should avoid meeting the gods. They're like cool people to admire from a distance. Medusa, so her name means queen, we're pretty sure. But she wasn't a queen, she was actually a priestess. She was a priestess of previous spotlight goddess, Athena. Now, there's two major, Medusa, first off, there's more than two major stories about her. The story of Medusa, and especially her battle with Perseus, is one of the more widely told Greek myths, and beyond that, if you just look at artwork that survives to us, it seems to be a story that was so well known that virtually everyone in the Greek world knew it. And a lot of times when you find a mention to it in an ancient text, it's just kind of mentioned offhand because it's a story that everyone knows. It's like, yeah, duh, everyone knows Medusa. In my studies, I was only able to find really two real major sources of the retelling of how Medusa became Medusa. How she went from being a priestess of Athena to becoming this snake monster that we all know and love, right? And the two main versions, there's one by Hesiod, or Hesiod, depending how you pronounce it. Somebody tell me, because I don't know. And there's another one by Ovid, the Roman writer. In Hesiod, so there's multiple versions of all these myths. Let me just take a quick digression here, right? Whenever I come across a version of a story that's told by Hesiod, because he's one of the earliest sources we have, he and Homer are more or less at the same time, but Hesiod seems to have been the guy who really kind of nailed the way that we tend to think of the gods and goddesses, and monsters and heroes and stuff. He's like the prime mythographer. So if Hesiod has a version of a story, I always go with Hesiod's version first. So Hesiod's version, she is like the girlfriend of Poseidon. In Ovid's version, the Roman version, many years later, she doesn't have a choice in the matter. And I don't want to get too punch into it because that stuff gets really dark, but whenever I tell an Olympians don't have a choice of stories, I like to choose the story where especially the heroines have some agency, where they get to choose their fate. And like that's kind of my whole version of Persephone. In my version, spoilers, Persephone, while she is abducted by Hades, she is not tricked into eating her magnifying glass. What? Oh my gosh, guys, what happened to me? She's not tricked into eating the pomegranates. She actually chooses to eat the pomegranates. She makes the choice to stay. I really enjoy the stories where there's actually a choice to be made. That being said, whether Medusa chose to be with Poseidon or not, she's still unfairly punished no matter what. And let me tell the story really quickly for those of you who don't know. According to Hesiod, She is a priestess of Athena. She is well noted for her beauty. And in order to be a priestess of Athena, you cannot have any romantic entanglements. Athena is a virgin goddess. Her priestesses have to be that way too. And she draws the attention of Poseidon's eye. Poseidon is a lot like his brother Zeus. He has last time I counted, I think it was 11 billion kids. He's not a great husband. He has, not a great dad for that matter. He has a lot of kids by a lot of different people and stuff. And so according to Hesiod, he and Medusa, who is at this point just a beautiful mortal woman, they have this relationship. It's not a great idea if you're a priestess of Athena to have a relationship with Poseidon, because Athena and Poseidon have static. There's a lot of reasons why they have static. There's some bad will about the whole naming of Athens instead of Poseidonia. There's the whole fact that Athena accidentally killed Poseidon's granddaughter. Whoops, that's going to cause some problems. They just have issues with each other. So Poseidon is a particularly bad choice to have be your beau if you're the priestess of Athena, who's not meant to have anybody as a beau. Then to have your secret hiding space where you meet together with Poseidon to be Athena's temple is like a doubly bad move, right? And maybe it's the sort of thing Poseidon can look like anything. He's super hunky. Maybe she couldn't help herself, whatever. So to cut to it, Athena catches them together in her temple. And she can't do anything to Poseidon. He's her uncle, but more importantly, just like her, he is an Olympian. He is immortal. He's invulnerable. You can't do anything to him. It doesn't work. So she takes it out on Medusa, which is really unfair. So she takes this mortal princess of hers, somebody who had given her life over to this, to worshiping Athena. This is kind of a story where Athena comes out really looking like a jerk, I gotta say. So does Poseidon. Everyone, all the gods look like jerks in this story. And then Athena curses her, turns her into this snake monster, so hideous that to look upon her actually would transfix you into stone. Her hair becomes a writhing mass of snakes. And she becomes what I think we can all agree is one of the most famous monsters ever created. And I think this is a good chance for me to draw Medusa. And I'm going to mention here, for people who have seen my book, I tell the story of Medusa in my book, Athena. It's not normally parented backwards. This is just the way it's filming. And I draw Athena in two different ways in this book. A lot of people don't recognize that. And on the cover, you could see the version where she looks truly terrifying. And that's basically the version when people are talking about Medusa and they don't actually see her. There's only one scene in the book where you actually see the way she really looks. Most of the times people say, Medusa's this horrible monster, lives on an island, she's surrounded by statues of all the people she killed. And she's drawn with these hollow eyes and these jagged teeth. I'm going to draw that one first. So let's give her big, hollow, spooky eyes. Maybe let's give them little pinpricks of light. So my idea behind having the two versions of her is I was thinking as I was designing this, I'm nobody, if you see her, you turn to stone, nobody really knows what Medusa looks like. You might have some descriptions, you might see a glimpse of her from behind. You see she has snake hair. You might see a shadow. If you're like Perseus, you use a reflection, you can see her, but you don't see her clearly. So I made her much more monstrous. Kind of you don't see it very much, but her nose is kind of sunken in, almost a little bit like a snake's nose, kind of like the way Voldemort doesn't have a nose, which is weird. And let's give her teeth. Drawing scary Medusa's teeth is fun because you can just draw as many teeth as you want in any shape. It doesn't really matter because, A, she doesn't really look like this, and B, it makes her look creepier. So there's a bunch of teeth. I also make her drool a lot like this. I don't think she really drools. This is just the version. She has almost a skull-like face, and you pretty much never see her this clearly in the books. That's a scary drawing. I'm apologizing. That's a scary drawing. I normally put her in shadow, but I don't want to use that much marker, so she's not going to be in shadow this time. Something that I feel was a kind of cool thing to hit upon my design of Medusa, I wanted her to be truly scary and terrifying. Now, if I met a person with snake hair, that's going to be upsetting enough. But when I was drawing the thin snakes, they were kind of, they weren't scary enough, I thought. So if you look closely at my Medusa here, Her snakes are big and fat and bloated and sickly looking and lumpy. And I actually thought, like, the way I described it to people, and I probably have said this in these videos, I drew her snakes to look like they had just swallowed like a whole guinea pig. So she's these big, fat, gross snakes. They're sticking their tongues out. They might be drooling as well. And it gives her like this real creepy, monstrous appearance. Let's do a little head up there of a snake. Let's give him some fangs. Snake's gotta be scary. So there's like my super scary, gross, scary Medusa. Okay, that's one way I picture her, right? But I don't think she deserves this. I don't think she deserves to be turned into a monster at all. So Athena condemns her into this monster, keeps her on the island. The temple to Athena is like decommissioned. It becomes this scary place that she lives in. And then people keep going there. They're like, it's almost like saying, like, you know, when you say like, don't touch that, it's hot. And you're like me, like, ugh. People are like, don't go there, you're gonna get turned to stone. And people kept going there and getting turned to stone. And it just became, Medusa became this monster who lived and lived. Now here's another part that's super unfair. Medusa is called the Gorgon, right? She's not the only Gorgon. She has two sisters named Stheno and Euryale, and they've also been cursed. And my question is, like, what did they do? Okay, we understand, not that this is an acceptable behavior to do this to someone. Like, oh, you kissed my uncle, I'm going to turn you into a snake monster. No, I'm also going to turn your sisters into a snake monster? That doesn't make sense. And they're not necessarily snake monsters. In fact, when I drew them, I kind of made them something different. The other Gorgons, well, Stheno means, I think it means strength, if I'm remembering correctly. Euryale means wide stepping. So whenever I picture her, she's like, oh, here I am, I'm Euryale. But like, they're also turned into monsters for something that their sister did, and like their sister didn't deserve it anyway. And weirdly, they're cursed or gifted with immortality. She stays immortal. Mortal, not immortal. So I'm going to draw, this is the way I think she really looks like. This is the real Medusa. And now, one of the reasons, it's hard to be sympathetic to that face. Even if she's very nice, you're still like, ooh, that's creeped out. Like, here's what I think Medusa probably really looks like. She has normal eyebrows. She has kind of slit eyes like a snake, but if you look, the shape... Well, first off, she has eyes, already an improvement over the last one, right? And her eyes, like, they're human-shaped, even though she has the snake version. She has a normal human nose. She's green and scaly throughout, but she still retains these human features. And I almost always draw her with a look of sadness or melancholy. Because I don't think she's a deserving monster. She's a victim, right? Not to say she's not powerful or very strong, but she was cursed by the gods. The gods, I'm a huge fan of the Greek gods, clearly. I've spent most of my adult life doing a book about, well, I've spent a big chunk of my adult life doing books about them. And, like, this is one of the most, like, I've loved this in my entire life. But the gods can be cruel and the gods can be capricious. I still give her, like, the kind of, like, fat snakes. Whereas I kind of don't give them in the middle of her head to make her almost like she's bald. Which, I mean, whatever. She just looks gross that way. She has the fat snakes, but they're, you know, a little less lumpy. And they're arranged in a way that's a little bit more attractive. Now you may ask yourself, well, if she's not all that gross, why does she still turn people to stone? To which I'll counter, I've seen some really ugly things. I've seen way uglier things than that. I've never turned to stone. I think the fact that she's ugly is independent of the stone ability. I think, like, basically Athena's like, you're super ugly, and on top of that, you're going to turn people to stone. I mean, she could have made her look like Sofia Vergara, and she still would have turned to stone. I think it's just two separate things. So there's Medusa. Like, the real version, in my idea. The attractive version. And I said she's a victim, and she is a victim. Because not only is she left alone on that island with her sisters, too. And that's gotta have been awkward at first. Her sister's like, wait, why are we monsters? She's like, well, funny story. And it's not funny at all. Eventually, Athena dispatches, well, as she is the sponsor of many heroes along with her brother Hermes. She eventually dispatches Perseus to kill Medusa, which makes me think she had this planned all along. It's like she cursed Medusa and she's like, you're gonna be stuck this way for a while, and then eventually I'm gonna send this dude who I'm gonna give a shield that he could see a reflection in. I'm gonna tell him how to kill it. My brother is going to give him winged shoes and a sword to cut your head off. I'm talking about Hermes. In some versions of the story, and actually in a lot of the versions of the story, and I left out because I thought it was unfair, Hades even comes and he's like, here, take my helmet so you're invisible. So you could fly, you don't have to look at it directly, you have a magical sword, and you're invisible. Medusa doesn't stand a chance. She probably didn't really stand a chance anyway. Perseus beheads her, mind her own business on her island. It's unfair. From her corpse... She's been pregnant this entire time, turns out. She wasn't showing. She was very slim. Suddenly disgorged Pegasus, of all things. Yeah, Pegasus is the son of Medusa and Poseidon. And she's been pregnant for, like, I guess, decades, because I get the feeling she's been this way for a long time. And this winged horse crawls over her body and flies away. And everyone's like, well, that was the weirdest thing I've seen all day. And I live in ancient Greece. And so then he takes the head, and eventually, after some adventures where he turns various people and giants and titans to stone, he returns the head to Athena. And Athena takes the head of this priestess, who in her mind wronged her, but in my mind was much greater wronged by Athena and Poseidon. And she takes her and absorbs her back into her. And we talked about Athena, her Aegis. The Aegis is some people show it as a cape. I show it as, from an older version, I show it as some people show it as a shield. I show it as a cape. And it's a cape made of the goat Amalthea that fed Zeus as a baby, and then it's overlaid with the skin of Pallas, the Gigante that tried to overthrow Olympus. And the final element is like these snakes from Medusa's head become like the tassels on this cape. So, yeah, that's kind of in a short bit the story of her. Now, like I said, I have a lot of sympathy for Medusa. She's one of my favorite characters. I feel like she's one of the best, even outside of Greek mythology, she's maybe one of the most successful monsters, in terms of the iconography and the fame ever created. She's been around for thousands of years, and there's not a person on this planet who doesn't know who Medusa is, right? So pretty awesome there. And I wanted to close this with a positive talk, because I don't think everyone thought she was bad. And that's because the image here, and if you saw my promos for this, I actually took a photo of the spines of my books. Just an isolated head of Medusa like this, back in the day, they would have called this a Gorgonian. And, you can see the name, the Gorgon, she's the Gorgon. This was a symbol that you would see the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans and other associated cultures would have the image of Medusa. And sometimes it was, especially in later periods, I think as they realized Medusa got a bad deal, they made her good looking too, or better looking the way I did. And sometimes it's really scary Medusa with tusks and big eyes and stuff. That was a symbol to ward off evil. So even though she was this person who is one of the most victimized of all of the people I can ever think, the gods, like I've said, the gods are not necessarily bad. They're kind of like people. I'm mostly good, but sometimes I do bad things. But I'm not all powerful. If I was all powerful and I was mostly good and sometimes I do bad things, I'd probably have a few instances where I turn people into snake monsters or something akin to that. So I think even though she is this character who's been cursed by the gods, right? And I think and on some level she has this second life where she is rescued as a symbol, where she's not a symbol of fright or evil. She is a symbol to ward off evil. And I think that's a pretty cool thing you could say about Medusa in the end, that she has a side, there's a good side to her. I think she'd rather have just been a priestess, just lived her life. I think actually in retrospect, she'd probably be like, you know what? Athena, I'm not going to be a priestess to you. I'm going to go be a priestess to Aphrodite. She doesn't care if I have a boyfriend. Might have been a better move. Also, probably just would have avoided being with Poseidon, because Poseidon's a big jerk. He wouldn't have taken care anyway. And if I die in a flood tomorrow or hit by lightning, you'll know what happened. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about Medusa. This is the point. I'll probably still blather on a little bit because this is the point I like to throw it out for questions or if you have any comments, or if there's anything specifically Medusa-y that you wanted to kind of know, like I'll be happy to answer some questions there. Somebody just wrote, Medusa been wronged. Yeah, Medusa was super duper wronged. Question, did Poseidon and Athena ever reconcile? That's a great question. It's kind of hard to tell because in Greek mythology, I've talked about this before, how there's not really a Bible, right? There's not like one version of the stories where they're all like together. So timelines are kind of hard to ascertain. And my take on the gods is, well, I mention this every time. They're immortal. They're never going to die. I think, but they are related by blood, right? They're a giant, crazy family. I think it's kind of like vagaries and whims that just kind of come through. And sometimes they're fighting, and sometimes they get together. Like we know there is that myth where Athena, Hera, and Poseidon team up to overthrow Zeus. I'm not sure where that happens in the chronology, but I tend to think that happened later. So I feel like at some point they do work together, you know? And they also, in the Trojan War, Athena and Poseidon fought on the same side. So I think there was respect for that. I think, like, you know, they're basically like, look, we're going to be alive forever. We're stuck knowing each other the entire time. I don't have it in me, like, you know what? It doesn't bother me enough, Medusa. It doesn't bother me enough, you killing my granddaughter, whatever. We're just gonna have to deal with each other because we're here forever. Because, I mean, really, I hate to say it, if you live forever and like a human lives like 100 years tops, like you're gonna forget about that pretty soon from their point of view. Who is your favorite hero? Favorite Greek hero? Mine is Achilles. Wow, interesting. Because I meet people with Achilles. I think Achilles, you read the Iliad, comes off as kind of a psychopathic jerk. But I'm definitely more Camp Odysseus if we go back to the epics. My favorite hero is Heracles, though. He wasn't always my favorite hero. It was actually working on Olympians, doing the book Hera, which tells the story in part, a big part of it actually, is her relationship to Heracles. And kind of like doing that, I found this one awesome story that I didn't know before I started researching on this, where Heracles, he's the son of Zeus, not the son of Hera, so you see there's a problem there, right? He's given this choice. He comes to a crossroad. One road is overgrown and steep and rocky and missing chunks, and there's a scary old lady at the end. She's like, come this way. You work really hard and you'll have to suffer your whole life, but everyone will remember you forever. He's like, okay. And he looks to the other side, and this side is gently sloping downward, and there's fruit trees everywhere. It's in the shade, and there's this beautiful lady. She's like, come this way. You're the son of Zeus. You don't got to worry. Just come over this way. Everything's going to be fine. And he chooses to take the path that's harder. And that, to me, not that I'm saying you should make your life unnecessarily hard, but for Heracles, he wanted to have a life of purpose and of matter, right? And for me, that really spoke to me. I hope at the end when Hermes comes to take me underworld, I hope I've lived a life that is purposeful and mattered. And Heracles definitely did. So Heracles is my favorite hero. From Shiloh, hi Shiloh. Why doesn't Medusa turn Athena to stone when Athena looks at her? Which is specifically something that happens on page 61 of my book when she has the severed head of Medusa and she absorbs her back into the Aegis. The answer is Athena would never create something that could come back and hurt her. And on top of that, I don't know that Athena could create anything that could hurt her even if she wanted to, because the gods are immortal. They can't be hurt. Well, they can be hurt, but they will just heal immediately as soon as they think about it. She can't, so she would never create, it would be very dangerous for her to it would be like, say like your cat's really mad at you and you're like, cat, I'm going to strap this death ray to your head and we're going to see what happens. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't give something that is beneath your power the power to hurt you. So does that make sense? And here's the thing, on top of it, I don't think you could hurt Medusa. Athena. Athena is a goddess. She's immortal, eternal. Nothing could ever hurt her. Let's see, a question. Is there a story where the gods are punished for their wrongdoings? And what do you think about the myth that gods would cease to exist when people stop praying to them? Okay, two-parter. There's not one story I could think of where basically all of humanity gets together and is like, gods, you're bad, and then they're punished. There's many stories wherein gods are punished for their wrongdoing. I already specifically mentioned the story of Zeus being overthrown briefly by Hera, Athena, and Poseidon. There is a story I'm not a fan of where Zeus punishes Hera by suspending her from the sky with anvils tied to her feet. It's kind of a weird story. It's very disturbing. Also, whatever. He could never do that to a Hera. There's a couple of stories where Apollo gets punished by Zeus for wrongdoing. In fact, there's even a version where Apollo and Poseidon are punished by Zeus for doing something wrong, and they're made to build the walls of Troy. So that's kind of interesting, right? It's a weird thing. With Apollo especially, there's a lot of stories where he gets punished. I don't know why that is. You see kind of echoes of stories, like the way there's a lot of stories where Ares gets in trouble for like killing someone who messes with one of his kids. That's like a little bit different. Like there's a lot of stories where Apollo is insubordinate to Zeus and gets punished. As far as the idea that gods would cease to exist if people stop believing in them, so far as I know, that's not a myth. That's something that in modern days, retellers of stories, people who've told new stories, have kind of come up with that as an interesting idea to explain. Well, here we are. We're talking every day. There's tons of people turning in to watch me talk about a bunch of gods that, for the most part, most people don't believe in. There's definitely some people who still believe in the gods. But for the most part, we don't. But they still have this enormous cultural hold for us. And I think it's an interesting thing. It's like, okay, so if these gods are so famous and well known, like why why did they ever have people worship them? So I don't think there's a myth that says they would cease to exist. I think if you read the stories, there is one story about where Prometheus creates mankind. Oh, there's a god who gets punished. Yeah, Prometheus. We'll talk about that guy sometime. But for the most part, most versions of myths kind of like the gods exist and people exist, and the gods didn't create people, but they're just different things. Like Plato actually talks a lot about that. Like he's like, oh, I believe the gods exist, but I don't think they have anything to do with us. And so I think because like it's like basically like it's not like a lot of religions where like they are the creators and we owe everything to them, although there are some myths that do that. So I think as a result of that, we've kind of like in later versions of stories, we've kind of ascribed this thing that we exist because of them, so they need us to exist. But I don't think that's a part of the original myths. I could be wrong. If anybody knows, let me know. Who suffers more, do you think? The woman who became entangled with Zeus or Poseidon? Whoa. Wow. That's a dark question, right? I'm going to say Zeus. Poseidon has some real ones that really stand out of people who have really suffered. But then a lot of the people, like we mentioned Thosa, like she was a goddess. I don't think anything particularly bad happens to her. I hate when people kind of vilify Hera for picking on Zeus's many, many extramarital loves. But I do think she does do that. I don't think she's entirely justified, but it's reasonable why it happens. And Amphitrite, the queen of Poseidon, she doesn't seem to have such a vengeful streak, and if she does, it hasn't been one that's been recorded in myth to such a degree. So I think with Zeus, it's just kind of well known. You're like, oh, hey, Zeus is really interested in me. Gosh, I wonder what horrible way Hera's going to devise for me to die, or somebody else. Let's see, who else? I think Zeus is more of a player. Yeah, I would agree with that. Is there any god, do you think, that was sympathetic to Medusa besides Poseidon? Oh, wow. Okay, I don't have any evidence for this, but I bet you Aphrodite would be very sympathetic. Because Aphrodite is all about love, and she's like, you should be able to love whoever you want. And she also, this is funny. This is the theme. She doesn't get along with Athena. Athena doesn't play well with a lot of others. You know, her and Hermes are super tight. Her and Zeus are super tight. She ends up forming like a kind of like bond with Hera where they kind of team up with each other. They appreciate each other's stuff. But a lot of the gods and goddesses she has some issues with. Athena, even though we tend to think of her as like this really great goddess, and she is. She does everything amazingly. She does have some issues. So I feel like Aphrodite would be like, yeah, that's not cool what you did. But I also don't think she would care enough to do anything about it. I feel like you don't see a lot of stories. I wonder actually, because I would say you don't see a lot of stories where gods undo each other's curses. And I actually wonder if that's actually a thing, that they can't undo each other's curses. Because you see it to such a degree. The closest thing I could think of is when Poseidon has banished Odysseus. And he's trapped on the island, and he goes off to this wedding in Ethiopia, and the other gods let him sneak off the island. And then he comes back, and he's like, "Bro!" and he like destroys everything. But that's like less of a direct curse, you know. It's like he didn't turn Odysseus into like a snake monster or something. That's really interesting. Let's see what else we got here. Where do you think Stheno and Euryale are right now? Stheno and Euryale are the sisters, the Gorgons, and we know they're immortal. So my belief would be they're on whatever island that this was, that the Medusa's domain, her, the temple was. I guess they're still there, still waiting. Maybe they've decided to lay low. Maybe they've gone underground. They're just waiting. But they're there. They're still around. Or maybe they've, I don't know, maybe they've moved on with their lives and they discovered that plastic surgery helps them, or like rubber masks lets them move in with society. So maybe they're just like, maybe they're your next door neighbor. Let's see. There was a cool one I saw. I guess I've lost it now. If you've asked a question and I haven't answered, just do it again, because sometimes these go by too fast. Do you think it was justified that Arachne was cursed by Athena? That one's interesting. So, for those of you who don't know the story, Arachne was a great mortal weaver, the best mortal weaver, and she was often compared in her abilities to Athena, the goddess of weaving. And Athena kind of did that thing, which it seems like it's really needy, where she kind of like shows up in disguise as like, I hear you're as good as Athena. She's like, yeah, I'm better than Athena, huh? And then like she challenges her to like a weaving contest. And Arachne, Athena does like just a beautiful job, because of course she does. And Arachne, well, there's two versions. One version, she just does a better thing. That, we won't talk about that. With the version I told, she does a really amazingly beautiful weaving, like a tapestry. But her tapestry is making fun of the gods, especially Zeus, who we know Athena's all in Zeus's corner. And Athena sees this at the end, like they go to present it, and Athena has like this beautiful one, and then like she sees this thing where it's like, hey, here's your dad as a cow, look what he's doing, oh my goodness. And so all these terrible things. And Athena flips out and turns Arachne into a spider. And that's why spiders are called arachnids, right? So do I think she's justified? I don't think there's ever really any good reason to turn a person into a spider, especially not just for insulting you. What I think is pretty cool about Arachne, and I'm actually going to say this is a bit heroic, she made a bad mistake in comparing herself to a goddess. And once Athena got there, I think Arachne just was like, well, I'm dead. I don't see a happy way out of this. Like, unfortunately, I drew the attention of an Olympian, and to bring this all to what we started in the beginning, it's kind of a good idea to avoid the attention of the gods. And I think in that moment, she's like, well, if I'm going out, I'm going to go out with a bang. Because I think no matter what would have happened, if she had done a really good one, I think Athena still would have done something terrible to her. If she totally lost easily, I think Athena would have done something to her. So she decided to go broke and just attacked Athena with her artwork. And then Athena was like, okay, so there. now you're a spider. So, let's see what else we get here. Do you think that Medusa would marry Poseidon? I don't know. We don't know enough about her personality before she's changed. And like I said up front, there's the two different versions. There's a version where she doesn't have a choice, and there's a version where she does. I went with the Hesiodic version where she has a choice. She must have seen something in Poseidon she liked. But I do also show in the Poseidon book that to see Poseidon, and I think any god, even Aphrodite famously has the power of love, but I think a god can just be kind of like they could just they could make themselves so irresistible you couldn't help but fall in love with them. So I think probably she would, but would it have been happy? Would it have been 100% her choice? I can't say. Did I intend for Athena to have a subtle temper issue in the series? I don't think that was my goal going in, but as you do Athena stories, it becomes clearly evident that Athena, even though she is detached wisdom and cold calculating intelligence. Wow, did you guys hear that? Something huge just got knocked over in my bedroom, and two of my cats came running out, so that's fun. I'll see what that is afterwards. Where was I saying? Oh yeah, there's definitely stories where she loses her temper. And so whenever I come across these themes, I do like to kind of enforce them and bring them up. So yeah, I think it's a really cool thing about these stories, and I enjoy it, that she's this kind of... that this is her thing. She's got a rage issue that's subtle and mostly restrained, but every once in a while it pops, and you don't want to be there when it pops. All right, what else do we have here? Gods can be very petty. I definitely agree with that. Is Medusa's hair still alive on Athena? In my opinion, yes. The snakes, and you see in ancient art too, the snakes are definitely writhing. And I think about this. I'm like, I feel like the snakes, because they each have heads, they probably have individual personalities independent of Medusa. When Medusa was cursed, you even see it in the picture when I have her being transformed. I'm going to show, dramatic reading. I'm going to show a page from that book where Medusa, we start off and we're looking at her face and she's just this blonde woman and she's crying, and then she realizes this moment of horror that her hair is writhing. And you could see the snakes seem to be independent of her. I think the snakes were their own intelligence. So they have this memory of being on this mortal lady's head and being this monster for years. And now they have this memory of they're part of her cape. The gods are not perfect, somebody writes. Yeah, they're definitely not. And that's one of the reasons I think they're so interesting. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I feel like the Greek gods are a very realistic idea of what would happen if people like you and I were suddenly granted immense power, all powerful. We wouldn't be all bad. We wouldn't be all good, because we're not all bad, we're not all good. I would hopefully say I'm mostly good and a little bit bad, and hopefully all of you are too. Maybe one of you is all bad. I don't know. But for the most part, you're all good, right? But you're still going to do bad things. When you're all powerful, the little bad things you're going to do are just going to be way bigger. When you have the ability to pick up a mountain and throw it, stuff's going to be scaled up accordingly. Why don't Medusa's sisters turn to stone when they see her? Oh, that's a good question. And actually, I never thought of this, but that must be why they're immortal. Because, I've always thought that was a weird detail. First off, it's weird that the sisters, strength and wide stepping, why they're even cursed at all. Why, if they are cursed, are they cursed with immortality when Medusa's not? It's gotta be so that they're not turned into stone. That is a really cool that's a cool thing to notice. Way to go. Let's see. Do you think the Greeks created the gods to justify their strengths and weaknesses? I don't know if it was a justification as much as I think I think the gods existed before they had the personalities the Greeks gave them. And I don't mean in a real sense necessarily. I mean, I think that the ancient Greek people were worshiping gods by these names and these general attributes before we start seeing them personified. And we see that starting with Hesiod and Homer. There's probably there's definitely things for it. We know that these things were being told live. I think over the course of centuries. Because remember, this wasn't just 100 years they've been there. The span of time that the Greeks and other associated peoples believe in these gods spans thousands of years. I think gradually personalities formed on the gods, and I think it just became, as they were storytellers, they started, so it wasn't to justify. I don't think they felt I feel like today I'm really jealous, so I'm going to make Zeus jealous. I think it was just it couldn't help but bring a personal touch. As a storyteller, I will tell you, when I do these books, or when I do any book, any storyteller brings a little piece of themselves to it. So I think as you would tell stories about these gods over the centuries and you'd pass them down to people, it became inevitable that you started interspersing parts of yourself in there. And I don't think it was so I guess I'm just parsing here. It's not that they were justifying it. I think it just happened. I think it was an inevitable thing to happen while you were talking about these gods. They became more human. There's a book I love. It's one of my favorite books of period. It's for adults, so kids, you're not going to be able to read it. It's a kind of hard read even. It's called The Marriage of Cadmus and Harmony, right? And it's written by this guy, Roberto Colasso. It's translated from the Italian. And it's a really great take on the Greek gods. And he has this one little line in there that I love. And it's so much. It's the Greek gods were the first gods to renounce abstraction and animal heads and take on human form. And what he's talking about, he's before this, gods, you look at the Egyptian gods, and they're distant and remote, and they're it's just a guy in this really stiff pose, and he has maybe an eagle's head or an ibex's head. But they don't have the personalities. Or the gods are just abstract concepts. And actually most gods, in most pantheons, in most religious beliefs, are pretty abstract and personality-less. But you come with the Greeks, and they're it's a crazy family. We all have. They're a big, crazy family, and we all see attributes. And that, I think, speaks to the fact, that, in my opinion, is why the gods are so well-loved today, even though most people don't believe them anymore. Because they had this, there's a real relatable area thing to them, and they're not perfect. They could do anything. But because they have these human limitations, They don't, and they mess up a lot, and it makes for great stories. Let's see, do we have any other? Like, would I want to meet Medusa if she wasn't deadly and ugly, like before she was cursed? Yeah, I would actually be like, Medusa, hey, it's really nice to meet you. You're doing some great work here. Get out, stop. Just don't, get away from Athena, don't even go near the water. If a guy comes out who's like really buff and looks like he has seaweed hair and he's super hot, I don't care, run away, he's bad news. I would try to warn her. Can you say something about Asgardians, my new project? Yeah, why not? Because I don't often get to talk about that. And I was actually thinking about them because I was saying how most gods don't have human personalities, and boy, do the Norse myths. So I'm currently working on the last book in Olympians. It's Dionysus. It's being narrated by Hestia. It's come along really well. I'm very happy with it. And that is going to close out the series of 12 books. 12 gods, 12 books. We know there's more, but whatever. And then immediately after that, I'm going to start working on a 4-book series about Norse mythology called Asgardians. And unfortunately, there's not nearly as much material. There's not as much stories about the Norse gods, though they do have very richly defined personalities. And by richly defined, basically 3 of them had richly defined personalities. So the books are going to be Odin, the father of the gods, Thor, his son, Loki, not the brother of Thor, that's a Marvel Comics thing. Loki is actually the brother of Odin. So he's actually like Thor's uncle. He's going to be the 3rd story. The 4th story is going to be called Ragnarok, and it's going to be the death of the gods. And there will be other gods and goddesses featured in there. The problem is in Norse mythology, except for the big 3, there's really not too many stories about more than one of the gods. Like you get Tyr, who has one big story where he gets his hand bit off. Or you have Sif, who has one big story where she gets her hair cut off. Or you have Idun, who has one big story where her apples get stolen. They just kind of have like these one-up stories. So they'll be featured in these other books, but the titular characters, the kind of gods that tie it together narratively, are going to be Thor, Odin, and Loki. And then the 4th book, they all die. When is my last book coming out? Please say soon. Soon. I don't have the exact thing. I'm still working on it, so it's going to be a little bit away. And I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of stuff getting held up in the world right now, as we know, for various reasons. Well, for one big reason we all know. Let me take 2 more questions, I think. I just moved the screen. Somebody mentions filling up Freya and Balder. Yeah, they're 2 other gods. Balder's big story, he's a Norse god. His big story is he dies. Okay, that's one good story. And Freya, she's an interesting one. She appears in a few stories. Freya is the wife of Odin. No, I'm sorry. She might be the wife of Odin. Freya is the goddess of beauty and love, kind of. She's the twin sister of Freyr. She's maybe the same goddess as Frigga. People aren't even sure. So that's kind of what she appears in maybe 2 myths. She's actually after them, she's maybe the one that appears the most. But there's some real base things about her we don't know. I'm not sure how I'm going to be tackling her. Is that a Voltron? Yes, it is. It's Lego. It's really cool. If you can, man, oh my. Actually, I'm going to say, one of the things I'm going to do eventually, I am going to, if you look behind me, that is my Lego Mount Olympus. I'm going to do an episode one day where I'm just going to share you guys close-up of my Lego Mount Olympus. It's got little mini figures of Legos, of all the Olympians. I call it the Lego Olympians. Oh my goodness. It's the best gift I've ever gotten, and it's just, I'm going to have to do an entire episode where we just kind of look at that. Would it be possible, this would be, I guess, the last question. Would it be possible to tease some pics from the coming comic like you did in your website, perhaps on Instagram? Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely be sharing stuff. Lately, my Instagram has become kind of a nonstop feed just for talking about this show and promoting it. And this is a great segue for me to wrap this up. But I will be posting a lot more work in progress type things as I go along. It just is, we're all getting used to this new status quo, right? So follow me at here. You're already here, so you probably already follow me. But like I said, on Monday, when the Geek Speaks Greek podcast or livecast recommences, I'm going to be moving back to the Word Bookstore feed. And there's a couple reasons. One of the main reasons is this. probably gonna be doing this comics class, so I'll have some more information about that on Monday. But also, I mean, to be honest, I get a lot more people watching me on Word. Word has like 20,000 followers. I have a little bit less than 2,000. I clearly, me being on social media as much as I am, this is new. I normally didn't have time for it. I'm loving it. Like I said up front, you guys are a real lifeline for me. Like, he's really making me very happy. But I just, I wanted to have the most people can see it. So follow me there, 4 p.m. Eastern. For the different drawings, draw me a Medusa. Draw me a Poseidon being a creep. Draw me an Athena having a subtle temper that she can't control. Send all this stuff to my email, georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. If you just go to georgeoconnorbooks.com, that's like my website. There's some cool stuff there, including you could sign up for my mailing list. If you sign up for my mailing list, you're automatically sent an exclusive digital Olympians comic. It's the only place to get it. And if you miss an episode, just check it out on my YouTube channel. Some of the things I was talking about, some of the stuff like maybe where I talk about the casting, maybe I'll put it up only on there, just as a special video. Just be like, hey, look at these great ideas. So if you have casting ideas for the Olympians movie, nobody sent this, I was disappointed. We talked about like which gods would have which astrological sign. Maybe send that. Maybe I could do special videos where I just talk about Dreamcast for Olympians movie, things like that. And I'll put those up directly on the website, YouTube. So, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope this was informative. I can't wait to see all your artwork. And I'll be posting stuff over the weekend, but I'll see you next Monday at Word Bookstores on Instagram at 4 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to do this all over again. I don't know who I'm talking about yet. If you have any suggestions, write in. I'm all ears. I got some ideas, but I could definitely move them around if somebody's got something cool. All right. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.